whatever the United States comes up with, because we know that they've been discussing Iran and Oman, joint control. Upbound would be controlled by Oman, downbound would be controlled by Iran, and if they wanted to slap tolls, each country could. So the president clearly doesn't want that to happen. But international law does not permit the United States to acquire foreign territory through a presidential decree, certainly not through a social media post. Now, also under the Constitution, acquiring or incorporating new territories requires the formal congressional approval, a treaty, a legislative act. Under the Constitution, the president cannot unilaterally do this. So it's probably just rhetorical showmanship. But again, it's the President of the United States making the declaration. Now, there's another thing to take into consideration, and how much consideration you want to give it depends on your interpretation of the veracity of a former member of Congress, and I'm referring to Marjorie Taylor Greene. He is claiming in a post on X that the Trump administration is actively considering a nuclear strike against Iran. And I'll tell you in a second why I bring this up in conjunction with today's discussion. She published that on X, stating that she was, quote, not speculating, but rather that she knows that high-level discussions are underway to, quote, lower the nuclear threshold. Now, the problem with this is it's totally unverified. There is no context. There's no substantiation. We also know that since leaving office, Greene, who was a big ally of the president, has aligned with anti-war conservative figures to really very strongly oppose U.S. military operations in Iran. So we have to take what she says with, I guess, as the saying goes, a grain of salt. But who knows? Maybe as a former congresswoman, she has the context of the administration, and maybe she is being told this. And maybe she believes it. And maybe it's true. I don't know. So the reason I bring it up is if you think there would be a crisis if the president ordered the bombing of Oman, imagine this. It would, first of all, the way it works is a presidential order to launch a nuclear weapon as a first strike. I think it's different if, like the doomsday scenario movies, Russia launches nuclear weapons towards the United States. He doesn't have to go through a congressional approval. He just, turns the key and pushes the button, basically. But a first strike against a nation that's not firing nuclear weapons at us, that proposal would trigger the highest level of military and legal scrutiny in the chain of command. Yes, in general, the military is bound to the concept of civilian control, but a nuclear order is different. Vastly different from a conventional bombing. So, in all likelihood, the Pentagon folks would not just balk, as I used that term earlier. There would be a highly formalized process to determine the order is legally valid. So it's not an absolute order as others might be. And I'm not going to get into the details, but there are 4 pillars of nuclear legality that have to be considered. And as a matter of fact, if the first strike order fails, goes for test, legally required to refuse it. So I don't want to get into a lot of detail into that. It's totally unverified, but there's a parallel to what our discussion is today, and that's why I mention it. So is this threat to bomb Oman a step too far? Well, I guess it depends on who you're asking. The president's detractors are already on the record calling it a dangerous and destabilizing statement on the part of the president. They point that Oman has been a loyal and an historic partner to the United States. But the White House is countering by saying that it's a necessary display of strength to break a deadlock following the expiration of the U.S.-Iran ceasefire. Okay, let's not lose sight of the fact that the threat was delivered informally. It was on True Social, but still, it is a threat. And it could be considered by some as a step too far. And as a result of this, there are already moves in Congress to try to block the potentiality. So some members of Congress are, at least on the surface, taking this seriously. Senator Tim Kaine, a Democrat of Virginia, says he's introducing a specific Oman War Powers resolution which would legally bar the executive branch from funding or executing unauthorized military strikes against Oman. Now, in the past, these war powers resolutions have been voted on in Congress strictly along partisan lines, but there are some indications that there might be some bipartisan support for such a resolution. Where does Congress have control? Well, always the power of the purse. So they could preemptively insert funding prohibitions into defense spending bills that explicitly prohibit federal funds from being used for offensive operations against Oman, absent a declaration of war. And within the military, there are some braking systems, and there are potential legal braking systems as well. And there would probably be some back channeling diplomatically to try to put an end to this absurd idea. There's Gary's bias on it, that the United States might attack an ally that has been trying to help us negotiate an end to the conflict in Iran. So, with that, the question is the president going too far here? Marshall, why are you not on the stage? Let me fix that. That's really weird. I don't know why that happened. Okay, so we'll start with Scott, and presuming Marshall makes it to the stage, followed by Marshall. Scott.
Look, I mean, they're trying to
know, um, this is just another indication, in my opinion, and this is just based on observation when I say it's my opinion, of the president's disdain for the State Department diplomacy. Traditionally, issues that are discussed behind closed doors between diplomats, where you can have candid conversations, but come out saying that that they had that they had a vibrant discussion that sends a signal that it was maybe contentious. But they don't go into the details of it. It gives everybody involved a degree of wiggle room when you follow the diplomacy. You don't make public pronouncements in the past that you then feel compelled to live up to, or maybe you don't live up to it and you look stupid. So if you were to threaten Oman diplomat to diplomat behind closed doors, you could always back away from it and save face, and you don't have it's not public facing. So the rest of the world doesn't see. We have no idea what goes on in these negotiations and negotiations in the past. What was really said between the United States and allies and the United States and adversaries. I mean, there have been times when the United States has put pressure on their allies, even as far back as Eisenhower, I believe. There was a dispute over the control of the Suez Canal, and he threatened to withdraw military assistance to some of our allies. But that wasn't, in a public pronouncement. And that was a threat to withdraw, not a threat to attack. I see nowhere, and Marshall could correct me if I'm wrong about this, but I try to find in history an example of a president of the United States threatening to bomb an ally ever before, or before the advent of the bombs, attack an ally. I can't find it. It may be there, but I've never heard of it. So this is really, at the very least, atypical. And Scott, I'm wondering how it further undermines the confidence of our allies in the United States. I mean, we've already withdrawn support from NATO. I understand the reasons why, in the president's mind, we have. But it's almost like we're agreeing with those who would come to the stage and say, hey, you guys, just, recognize the American empire is crumbling. You no longer have the juice to do anything. And, here's another example of that, because the president is acting like he's a cornered animal and attacking even his allies. I don't know if that's a fair analogy, but that's what comes to mind with me. Scott, it just seems like diplomacy is gone. It's out the window. It may not be totally gone, but it certainly has been eroded under this administration.
Yeah, that's an understatement. I mean, of course it has. I mean, look, this is one of those things where this is not ideological, right, or partisan. I don't think. I mean, I think this is just personality, right? This is Trump's personality. Aside from, again, his foreign policy instincts and whether they're isolationist or now interventionist. I mean, now they seem at this moment interventionist, contrary to what I think he promised. A lot of his supporters, right, were supportive of his candidacy because you remember, didn't he say if we elect Kamala, we'll be in war with Iran? I mean, this is Yeah, I don't know how you have any trust in Trump. But again, I think it would be interesting for one of his supporters to. I hope we have a supporter on the stage that can tell us what the positive gloss on this is. Maybe this is his fly by the seat of his pants unpredictability that keeps people on their toes or something. I don't know, Gary. I don't know. I'm at a loss for words, so I'll just
Well, God forbid he were to actually make such an order and put the military in the terrible spot of trying to determine whether that's a lawful order or an unlawful order. It's just not fair, in my opinion, to the career military commanders to give them an order to attack an ally. It just, where does that put them? They would, I just gave a little overview based on some research that I did. I'm no expert. I did accurately quote the military code, but certainly that's just a segment of the code. I don't have a full understanding of what all that means. I know what I just read, but to me, it's just putting them in an untenable situation. What if, since he's willing to suggest attacking Oman, what if he just decides we're going to take Canada as the 51st state? What if he decides that by force? What would the Pentagon do then? I don't think there's any question, but they would not follow through on that order. But I don't think that's beyond the realm of possibility, not probability, based on what he's saying about Oman and what he has said in the past about Canada. These comments, he may not mean them in the literal sense, but they certainly have consequences. And as you and I have both said many times before, I love quoting Barack Obama on this. Don't tell me words don't matter. They certainly do. Thank you, Scott. We'll go to Marshall, followed by Agent.
I just can't believe he threatened to bomb our ally again. Didn't he do this like a couple months ago?
I don't recall him. When did he do that?
Because let me tell you something, Jerry.
You got to wait your turn, buddy. Sorry. Go ahead, Marshall.
I was saying he threatened to bomb Oman a couple of months ago. Like
he did?
We talked about it on the show.
I don't remember talking about it. Maybe I'm getting so old that my memory banks are failing me. But go ahead.
Well, he said it once before as a joke. I don't know if he said it as a joke this time, but he said it once before. So I don't know what to make of it, Gary. It just seems like not a very good thing to do to threaten to bomb your ally, even if you're mad at them because they won't help you.
You're absolutely right. I'm looking it up now. I missed this. If we discussed it on stage, I don't recall it. That threat occurred on May 27th during a White House cabinet meeting. A reporter asked Trump if his administration would accept a short-term deal allowing Iran and Oman to oversee shipping through the Strait of Hormuz. And the president responded aggressively, stating, quote, "Nobody is going to control it. It's international waters, and Oman will behave just like everybody else, or we will have to blow them up." So there were those who initially wondered if the president had simply misspoken and meant to say Iran, but the State Department later confirmed the remarks by publishing an official transcript explicitly naming Oman. I don't know what the hell's going on here with this president. I guess this, as I said earlier, is his form, Marshall, of diplomacy. We'll get people to do things by threatening to do things to them. That's what I think is going on here. He's the diplomat in chief. Just like he said during his first administration, that he knows more about the military than the Pentagon does. And he didn't say the Pentagon, I think he said the leaders of the Pentagon, or I'm paraphrasing, I don't remember the exact quote, but I think you recall to which I refer. Maybe he thinks that he's like the diplomat in chief, and we can't expect our foreign services corps to deliver messages in a manner in which we can have candid discussions without scaring the bejeebers out of people and causing them to look at the United States and say, what the hell is going on? It's just mind-boggling to me, frankly. But you're right. Thank you for bringing that up. I had forgotten it.
Yeah, so it makes it twice. It makes it 2 times that he threatened to bomb an ally.
The same ally.
Yep.
I mean, what the hell is going on here? And yet, as we discussed yesterday, he's pulling back on the pressure on North Korea. I mean, I just don't get it. Not that I'm, looking for us to go to war with North Korea, but I think, as we discussed yesterday, Reagan had it right about using the military as a deterrence. And by the way, the threat of military action could sometimes be more effective than actual military action. And military action can be effective if it's successful, but we haven't been very successful of late. So that makes the future threats of military action less of a deterrence. Agent followed by Hanson. Agent, are you with us?
Hey, Gary.
Yeah, we can hear you now. We hear you now.
I saw the headline. It's pretty hard to, I've said before, this is someone you take seriously, but not literally. And again, he says stuff. It sounds like he was exasperated when he said it. Although, people should have a little bit of, well, maybe he might do something. Look, what does Kelsey say is like the chances that this will happen, right? What does Polymarket say? I think that's where, if people want to know what the money says is more likely, and how much did it go up as far as the likelihood after his latest statement. I mean, we can get all worked up about what he said, but what does the money think people willing to actually bet on the outcome? I mean, that tells you how much more likely this thing actually is. I think it's I haven't looked it up. I should have looked it up, but I suspect the chances are very low. But I think he's making a point. He's doing negotiation and he's saying, look, you got to get on board. Sometimes people are your friends, but they undermine you, right? Or they sabotage you in some way. And I think he's really trying to call out a friend at this point, if you want to frame it that way, and say, look, you're undermining us. This is extremely expensive for us. The stakes are high. And if you're going to continue doing these side deals, that is going to make Iran then less likely to do a direct deal with, you want to negotiate as a united front. So I think that's what this is about. Now, if they really undermine us too, maybe if they cross some kind of red line somehow and they do get bombed. I don't know. I'm not going to say it's impossible. I'm just saying, just because his words literally said that, nobody should take this man literally. Anyway, I think I made my point. Thank you.
Except that he's the president of the United States. And there are consequences to these kinds of things. So to use your analogy, well, you didn't actually describe it as an analogy, but you used the term friend. So if you and I are friends and we enter into some kind of a business arrangement, and it seems to me that you are taking advantage of the agreement so that it's not mutually beneficial, but the thumb is on the scale in your behalf, and I feel like I've been betrayed by you. I might have strong words with you and say, Agent, what the hell do you think you're doing here? And we may have, we might get into a shouting match, but I don't know that I would threaten, and I don't know that you would if the shoe were on the other foot, to beat the crap out of me or to shoot me, because I think shooting me would be a greater analogy than beating the crap out of, because bombing people die. So this is a proper way of expressing one's frustration. And why do you have to express the frustration to the world on Truth Social? If you're an adult, you pick up the phone and you call the head of the government in Oman, who I don't know whether they call that person a sheikh or what, but you call the head of the government in Oman and you say, hey, come on. Hey, man. That's what Biden would do. He'd go, hey, man, what are you doing? I mean, wouldn't that be the adult way of handling this? I mean, the whole world is watching this, and it just adds to the global disdain for the United States right now.
I hear you, Gary. I mean, part of it's just a generation or a stylistic thing. I'm sorry that people do, tweets are the medium didn't exist when we were young. This medium certainly didn't exist when the Constitution was written. And think about how formal those documents are. You can go and view those documents today and see how people used to communicate important messages to each other, and how nations would communicate, how leaders of nations would communicate. And technology and social norms have changed, and I know this is difficult. And personality, certain personality, populism, this demagoguery, that's an inevitable consequence of a representative or democratic style system. Okay, if you let any person in your society vote just for existing, you're going to get something closer to the lowest common denominator, which is what we have. And that's what we get. If you want a different system, if you want a system where only elites following very highly established ceremonies and norms, and communication happens this way, marriages happen this way, that's it. You're asking for a completely different government, essentially, system, way of life, everything. This is what we get. If you say you like democracy, you should be thrilled at the fact that you have a popularly elected president who is sending social media messages to other nations. Thank you, I'm done.
Canada is a democracy. It's a parliamentary system, not a republic, but it is a democracy, duly elected. They are culturally very similar to the United States. I imagine a lot of people are expressing their personal biases against other people. Their personal affronts are being played out for everybody to see. That's the culture to which you refer. You could go to the social media sites and see it. Gosh, I saw a guy I know who's pissed off at the way his kid's been treated by a teacher. I think don't know whether I think it's high school. And he's so pissed off at that teacher, he goes onto social media to say what a piece of crap that teacher is. And okay, that happens. And I'm sure that happens in Canada too. But you don't see the Prime Minister of Canada making pronouncements like the President of the United States makes on social media that have global ramifications. He's measured in his tone. He does say some strong words in response to some of the things, especially the tariffs that have been imposed by the president and the threat to make Canada the 51st state. As well, he should. He's representing Canada. He's not representing the United States. But you don't see any other leader of a democracy acting in this manner. And the president's 80 years old, for God's sakes. How many 80-year-old people do you know who are doing things like this? I guess age does not necessarily translate into maturity. I'm an example, maybe. Maybe age doesn't. I may be example number one. Thank you, Agent. We'll go to Hanson, who I'm sure will have a lot of insight and correct everything I said that was wrong about the Military Code of Justice, followed by Brent Hanson.
Well, I'm certainly not aware of any domestic statutory law, one way or the other, that authorizes or restricts the president in the use of nuclear weapons. So I went to ChatGPT for what it's worth. No statute that specifically requires congressional approval before a president orders the first use of nuclear weapons. There is no statute, okay? There should be, but there's not. Should be, in my view. You mentioned the 4 pillars, which I've never heard of, but ChatGPT offers what it calls important legal constraints. 1, the order must be lawful. Well, we've talked about how you determine that. 2, military necessity. There must be a legitimate military objective. Well, we can talk about that. Distinction. Attacks must distinguish military targets from civilians. Anytime you drop a nuclear weapon, you're not distinguishing very much between military targets and civilians. And finally, proportionality. Expected civilian harm cannot be excessive related to the anticipated military strategy.
Yeah, those are the 4 pillars, Anson. That's exactly the 4 pillars.
But they have absolutely no statutory limitations. That is the key point. And we can argue about all those points, but I believe there should be statutory required for a first strike. Okay, not for a bolt out of the blue. Here comes 1,000 missiles headed, and the president has to decide whether to respond or not. That's a whole different ball of wax. Now, let me talk about Marjorie Taylor Greene. Serious discussions, obviously, that Trump would not participate in, because I don't think he's ever demonstrated he can have a serious discussion about anything. But serious discussions related to the use of nuclear weapons, strategic, tactical, whatever, usually goes on in the Pentagon within the Joint Staff. Marjorie Taylor Greene says she absolutely knows that such discussions have taken place. Well, of course, somebody probably on the Joint Staff said somebody was talking about the ins and outs and the what ifs and so forth of the use of tactical nukes. Okay? That's not meaning that we're getting ready to launch. That just means the Joint Staff is doing a very difficult but important job. So I give her absolutely no credibility because there's no way she can be certain. What I suspect is some general or admiral said, "Hey, Marjorie, a bunch of us were sitting around and talking about whether to nuke Tehran," which, all that's bullshit. The Where am I going? Oh, knowing a bit, and on the deck plates, so to speak, knowing that evaluating the legality of an order, particularly, let's just restrict it to the use of, say, a first strike launch of a tactical nuclear weapon. How do the people outside of Washington know whether the four constraints have been when I was going to sea on submarines, and of course that was 40 years ago, we didn't get newspapers. We weren't told what was going on. We were not aware of current events. And if bing, 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 the teletype started clicking, and it was related to the use of nuclear weapons, that kicked in. Two-man control, two officers go in. They both have to carry one side of the card to the other. They both have to deliver it. Two-man control, the whole gamut of actually executing the launch. There's no way in hell those guys on a submarine have the ability to decide, is the order legal or not. There was a great movie that I enjoyed. Many others probably didn't understand it. It was called Crimson Tide, and Gene Hackman and a very young Denzel Washington. Gene Hackman was the skipper of an SSBN, a nuclear submarine carrying nuclear ballistic missiles. Gene Hackman was the CO. Denzel Washington was the XO, and it almost was a movie that right out of the Caine Mutiny, where the XO, the skipper, for various reasons, was convinced that a nuclear strike was needed, and that he ordered the crew to start the process of conducting the nuclear strike. And Denzel Washington, basically, they had a mutiny, and they didn't let him do it. That was, again, the movie Crimson Tide. It's the reverse, where how about if Denzel Washington is the XO today, and a legitimate order, meaning it meets the requirements of all the codes and security and all that. When I say legitimate, it means it's absolutely correctly following the protocol of how to communicate, prepare for, and actually launch a nuclear weapon from down in the field, or on a submarine, or on a bomber, or whatever you want to call it. Where the skipper got a message like that, and it orders the initiation of the process, and Denzel Washington, as the XO, has a mutiny because he believes the order is not lawful. That ought to be a great movie. But let me close with all this. This is Trump derangement syndrome that is accurate. And I believe that just as there was some serious discussion about the use of the 25th Amendment during the last year or so of Biden's presidency, was he mentally competent and able to execute the office? And there was some reasonable discussion. Okay. Obviously, it didn't happen. We ought to be having those kind of reasonable discussions today about Trump. He is so far out of bounds and so far away from the norms of the way the United States has been conducting world affairs since World War II that the cabinet and the Congress should be seriously considering the use of the 25th Amendment. That's all I got.
Thank you, Hanson. So with regard to those 4 pillars and why I said that they must be met, I got this from the Military Law Center. Now, it sounds like an official body. It's not. It's a private civilian law firm founded by a retired Marine Corps lieutenant colonel specializing in defending military service members facing court martials, Article 15, administrative separations, so forth. And according to that, through a combination of international, according to the Military Law Center, that is, through a combination of international treaties ratified by the Senate, U.S. military regulations, and federal statutory criminal codes, the 4 pillars of the law of armed conflict must be met. It's a legally binding authority, according to this Military Law Center, for what it's worth. Might be worth some further research.
But come on, Gary. That's like Marjorie Taylor Greene saying she absolutely knows that there are serious discussions about launching a tactical nuke against Iran. That's coming from, it's not even coming from a government organization. It's coming from a bunch of lawyers, it sounds like, which is kind of scary. And can you imagine, again, the man in the field, the sailors and officers, mid-level officers, even the commanding officers, when that teletype starts clicking, are they going to go down through that checklist and make individual judgments as to the details of those 4 pillars? No, those 4 pillars are something that should be debated in Congress. And then if Congress so desires, they should put it in writing in legal statutory law, federal law. That's when you take any doubt out of the hands of people that are just trying to do their job and follow orders. You take any doubt out of their hands because Congress has passed laws, not norms, not constraints, not whatever you want to call it. Like I led off with, Gary, absolutely there ought to be federal law that says the president must have congressional authority to launch a first strike. Now, can you imagine that debate? But that is a statute that is desperately needed, particularly when you've got Trump with his finger near the trigger. But the rest of that stuff it's like, how much authority does everybody's opinion that we're banning them out in this room have? I mean, come on. If I was a skipper of a submarine and somebody gave me those 4 constraints, I wouldn't have the slightest idea what the hell to do with them, because it would just be my opinion, my reading, my evaluation as a CO, which you don't want to have when you're dealing with nuclear weapons.
So I agree with all that, but there's a distinction between the practicality and the legality. And right now, as best as I can suss out, in spite of the fact that it's not been codified into one obvious, and I agree with you, it ought to be law that delineates how these things should be, handled. If you look at the Geneva Conventions, they require strict adherence to distinction and humanity, 2 of the pillars. The Hague Conventions restricts the methods and means of warfare. there's statutory codification in federal law. I'm reading this obviously from AI at this point, but apparently there is agreement through, if you look at the Uniform Code of Military Justice and the War Crimes Act, and as well the Department of Defense regulatory frameworks, there are guidelines for these kinds of things. You are correct that it's not codified, made into one statute, which it ought to be, and it puts the person receiving the order in an untenable position. You either follow the order or you don't, and you don't really have a basis right now for not following the order, and that's very dangerous. I agree with you there.
Okay, and let me expand just briefly on that. That is why I got so upset with the message. What was it? Kelly and 6 Democrats sent out a public release warning the military, meaning people like me, a commanding officer of a submarine, not some high-level 4-star admiral in the Pentagon. But they were a message to me saying you don't have to follow legal orders. In other words, encouraging me to make up my own mind as a captain U.S. Navy whether it's a legal order or not. That is an unbearable burden on people that are in such positions, and to accept responsibility in that position and think if you do your job and follow orders, that you're going to be court-martialed. And I have to make that judgment, that legal judgment. You mentioned the Hague Conventions, the War Crimes Act. I'll guarantee you, throughout my entire naval career, I never had any training, I never read, and I probably hadn't even heard about the Hague Convention and War Crimes Acts and that stuff that you mentioned. That's for Congress and lawyers and high-level people to sort through and figure out what they really want to happen. But of course, that doesn't happen in today's politics.
Not to even, not to even.
I'm sorry for being on a soapbox.
No, it's like not to even try to put myself into your shoes that you wore when you were serving. But I would think that it would be an undue burden, even if you're never called, as thank God we've never been since World War II, but to enact such an order. But knowing that that order could come at any time seems to me to be an undue burden. Just waiting for the potentiality, knowing that it could happen. Even though the probability is that it wouldn't, the potentiality is there. You got under your command right there the ability to follow that order and unleash the most lethal power weaponry against humanity. I don't know if I can handle that burden. And even if I'm never called to do it.
Well,
I'll
guarantee you that there are 150 or maybe 300, depending upon how many Trident submarines on full alert are at sea today. But there are submarines out there today in that position where the protocol says when the teletype starts ticking, the first missile should be away within 15 minutes. That's going on today.
Holy cow. And that's probably how long it takes to do it, right? Probably takes you that long to do it.
From the time it goes gone, man, battle stations missile for a tactical launch. From that moment, and that's when the message comes in, is taken to the skipper and the XO, 2 men, evaluate it, concludes that it's illegal, it's a legitimate order, meets the protocol. That is when the klaxon sounds, the crew reacts, And the norm is that within 15 minutes, the first missile out of 24 is away.
By the way, is it true, as we see in the movies, that when the order comes on the teletype, it has a code and then there's a lockbox and you have to match the code against the code in the lockbox?
Everybody involved, like just take me as if you're the XO, or there are officers assigned to tubing and duty, nuclear codes, and so forth. Those pieces of paper are in two lock safes. My stateroom is a CO had two locked safes. I only had the combination of one lock. Somebody else had the combination to the second one. So I couldn't even, as the CO, I couldn't get in to get the car that would have the codes. And then the same for the teletype is clicking. The radio that has to be two people out of handling, the junior officers that read it and match up the codes, bring it to the CO and the XO, and then the weapons officer and others that are actually, there are multiple keys that have to be turned to, continue the process. And those keys are under 2D control with the same regimen that I'm talking about.
So in the
If we practice that many, many times throughout a 70 or 75 day patrol during the Cold War, we didn't actually open the safe. We never actually got the keys out. We had practice keys that were kept under that kind of control. So we didn't practice with the real thing. We practiced with drills. But we bong, bong, I remember, it just happened routinely. Bong, bong, bong. Man, battle stations missiles for a weapon system range. That's what we heard. And oh no, another effing drill. There we go. You go command your battle station. That went on all the time, and probably still does.
So what about I know we're getting way off track, but this is fascinating information. We'll move back onto the topic in just a second. But we see these scenarios where the order is made and then rescinded, and at the very last second, humanity is saved from a first and second strike because the order got rescinded. Is there a mechanism in place for the order to be called back before that 15-minute period is over? And I apologize for coughing.
No. You could get a countermanding order coming from the same source. Basically, it used to be keyed out of Cheyenne Mountain. I don't know where the president gives the order, and then that goes to somebody, some radio operator, and teletypes start clicking. I don't know where that happens, but they go click, 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 all the way to the radio that puts the message on the tape, and that's broadcast very low frequency and antennas and upper level Michigan that go to the submarines and the bombers and the missile silos, and that's the way it works. So yeah, you could get a countermanding order, but it would be a close call.
Wow.
And
it always is in the movies too. It always is a close call.
I know this is way off target, but it emphasizes again what my fundamental concern is. These are decisions that have to be made at the highest level of the government and codified in understandable U.S. law, not political bullshit and opinions. U.S. law, so that I know the law when I'm a captain of a submarine, and I know how to follow that law, and I've got training on it. That's not the case today.
Thank you for that, Anson. Very insightful once again. Brent, followed by Daryl.
So, I think this is an example of just more kind of chaotic foreign policy that this administration has. We've got into a war in which, the Iranian response was pretty clear from the start. And the fact that we didn't really have a solution was pretty clear from the start. We've signed a memorandum of understanding, or at least we did at one point, that seemed to be okay with Oman making a deal with Iran, and now we're not, and it's kind of interesting. It's kind of interesting to kind of see us go back and forth like this, and I think if you widen it out, you can kind of see this chaotic foreign policy, also be exemplified outside of Iran, whether it's Greenland seizure, or whether it is the various other, the various other kind of foreign policy buffoonery that we've had. And I think at the end of the day, where that leaves us is kind of in a lurch, and that lurch is undermining the global world order that we've had since World War II. And if you want to look for any other place to see that, the only thing you have to do is look at the bond market today that is falling through, or that is increasing faster than we get.
Thank you for that, Brent. I think it's a trigger for me. It's probably pretty obvious by the virtue of the fact that I choose these topics and how I present them. Obviously, I have my bias when I present it. I try to show both sides, or as many sides as possible. But I do have a bias. We all do. I'm kind of triggered when we are threatening our allies. Why are we threatening allies? We are threatening to take over Greenland. We are threatening, and in fact, in the tariff war with Canada, we have threatened Mexico. Now we're threatening Oman. Who does that? Who spends their days threatening their so-called friends? I just find it hard to accept, even if one were to look at it through the prism of, well, this is just Donald Trump's form of diplomacy, and it's not anything that he would actually carry out. And that may be true. But I don't think that's even the point. Just the fact that a president of the United States would make such threats against our allies, I find reprehensible. I don't know how other people view it, but why is it even necessary? And I know we always get these explanations. Well, what the president really means, and we know that it's that, and we know that it's this, but look, there's a reason behind it, and this is the reason behind it. And I can actually understand, in this particular threat, the reason behind it. Oman should not be, from the United States perspective, what word do I want to use to make it a fair word? They should not be cooperating, I guess would be the most neutral word. They should not be cooperating with Iran on a plan to reopen the Strait of Hormuz in the manner in which they have discussed doing if they are our ally. I agree with what he's trying to accomplish. He wants it to be reopened as an international waterway with no tariffs along the way as it was before. But the manner in which he's doing it, I just can't abide, personally. I really have a problem with it. How are our allies supposed to view us now? Will they be the next ones to be threatened? Nobody wants to be threatened. It's poor form to threaten your friends or your allies. So, what the heck's going on here? It makes really little sense to do this because there are consequences to this. And we hear it all the time when people from other nations come to the stage here and talk about how people in their communities are starting to view the United States not in a very positive manner. Thank you, Daryl. Brent, we'll go to Daryl, followed by Doctor.
Hey, can you try and invite Amir up? I've been trying to invite him up several times, and he's not making the trip. I think it's a clubhouse glitch on my end.
Who?
Amir.
I've invited him as well. I've invited everybody.
Then it's a clubhouse glitch. It's this glitch on Clubhouse where
So there are several possibilities, and it could also be. Is he back channeling you, telling you he's trying to get in?
yes.
Okay. That's important information because I know that some people who I've talked to who have been in that position did not intend to put their hand up, but it's too easy, as we all know, to click on that by mistake, and so that's why it's hard to determine why people aren't making it up to the stage. But in this case, I've invited them repeatedly, and
it must be the glitch where if you leave and come back, it'll let us invite you back.
Sometimes, not always, but he can try it. Daryl, followed by Doctor.
Yeah, so trying to make it make sense when it doesn't. I think like everyone's trying to think rationally. Why is this happening? Because this is irrational in a sense, right? It's because he's irrational. So I think like what we should do collectively, and people can agree or disagree, is that we should agree that maybe he's not thinking rationally. Maybe it is time to consider, some of the things that we hear people talking about, right? Because look at what's happening. He's not threatening Oman because Oman threatened to attack us. He's not threatening Oman because Oman attacked like one of our soldiers or our bases or killed an American somewhere. He's threatening Oman because Oman's not doing what he wants them to do. And so we had this situation. We were the first nation to drop the bomb. No one's actually dropped the bomb since. And now we're threatening to start dropping bombs again, simply because other players on the chessboard.
When you say we're the first to drop the bomb, you're referring to nuclear. He's not threatening. You're right. He's not threatening an atomic attack on Oman, to my knowledge. The nuclear conversation came in because I mentioned that Marjorie Taylor Greene is also saying that, and it's unsubstantiated, but this is what she's claiming, that she knows that the administration is contemplating a nuclear attack on Iran, not on Oman. Well, but that's not been verified.
Yeah. I go back to, though, that none of this makes sense. And at the same time, I think he thrives on chaos. This is just my opinion. But I think there's a part of him that actually likes the chaos, right? Look at some of these 2 a.m. texts, right? Why is he saying praise be to Allah in these texts? Is that just like a troll? Is he trolling like Muslim people around the world? What is the praise be to Allah thing about? Is it to, I'm going to antagonize these people as much as I can? Or can we just actually say, hey, maybe he's losing it. Maybe there's maybe there's something going on that we're not privy to, and maybe he's just losing it somewhat. I'm not saying he's like, fully around the other end of the barn or anything like that, but it's unfortunate that I could come in here and say, hey, my mom was 76 when she passed, right? And there were days where my mom was very lucid. And then there were days I'm like, what the hell is this old lady talking about? Right? But we can't say that because we can't say what it seems like our own eyes and ears are telling us, because it becomes this thing where, well, you can't diagnose a person without actually, like examining the person. All of that be damned. I think we have enough intuition to say that something's not making sense here. And if we don't get to the bottom of it, where will we be? We've abdicated our global leadership.
So let me just make a distinction based on what you just said.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you or I or anybody is in a position to diagnose the President of the United States. But I think you and I and everybody are in a position to observe and comment on his behaviors. That is the distinction that I think we have to make as we view this. So, for example, I know a guy who I have to tell him sometimes 3 or 4 times before he gets it, and he'll repeat stories to me and to other people that he has told us in the past. I'm not going to diagnose him. I don't know that he has dementia or Alzheimer's. I have no idea, but I can accurately describe what's going on with him, his symptoms. And I think it's fair to talk about the systems. I don't think any of us are qualified to make the diagnosis.
And again, no one's diagnosing, but like I'm saying, we can all, like you just said, we can all observe what we're observing. And anyone who's actually been around an elderly person or someone who's getting a little older and has seen similar things happen, I think it's completely fair to say, hey, maybe we should take grandpa down to the doctor for a checkup or something like that. That's fair. But the other argument is to just shut down even the conversation. Like I said, we have completely we have given up the idea of American leadership. We're like you just said, someone said earlier, maybe it was Anson, we're threatening to invade Greenland, right? We're threatening Canada, make Canada the 51st state. That's not going to happen. So if that's not going to happen, why is he saying this? He's saying this because he loves the idea of the chaos, right? I told you, my friend worked for him for 12 years. She said he watched The Sopranos religiously, and he loved Tony Soprano. He loved how Tony would, dictate to the other bosses what they had to do. He loved when Tony would just grab someone and throw them against the wall. I don't believe for one instant that he has what's best for this country in mind. I believe he's been benefiting personally, not only himself with trades, but it's the crypto, it's the sneakers. He sees the office of the leadership of America as an opportunity to pad the coffers, and I don't think he actually cares about what the outcome is or will be, as long as it benefits him personally. I think he's very afraid of becoming a lame duck. I think that's why, some of the stuff, like, I wouldn't put it past him to declare some type of emergency during the election, because I think he fears being a lame duck more than he fears being out of office in 4 years or 2.5 years.
I got some breaking news that's related to this. CNN is reporting, quoting an unnamed source, that the president has ordered his top envoys to stop talking to Iran. Now, this really is interesting because today he put out a Truth Social posting which said that there are no talks and none scheduled. But yesterday, in an interview with Fox, Kushner said that not only are talks going on several levels, because there are several different groups who profess to represent Iran, which of course is complicating things.
But again, I go back to
that those talks are not just going on, but they're more fruitful than ever before. That was yesterday, Kushner. Today, the president puts out a True Social post saying that there are no talks and there are none scheduled. And now CNN is reporting, you can question the veracity or not, that the president ordered his envoys to stop talking to anybody from Iran. So I don't know what's going on here, but we're getting mixed messages there as well, and I'm a little bit nervous because anytime you make the decision to stop talking, that suggests an alternative that may be unpalatable.
And again, I just go back to he's the president, right? And I get it. Some people don't like the idea of the president being, the pomp and the circumstance, whatever you want to call it, but he is still the leader. And you want your leader to at least act like a leader, not just a bully, but, use your diplomats. Why aren't you using your diplomats? What are we paying all of these people in the State Department to do? Why isn't he using the people that are supposedly highly trained at this, very sophisticated at this, very skilled at this? Why is the leader of the free world governing through you can't even call them tweets, what is it called? Truths anymore? And I think people should, maybe yes, people decided that this was what they wanted. But I think, at some point you have to decide, is this still what you want? The divorce rate is 57% because 57% of these people said until death do us part, and then they said, whoa, wait a minute, I want to get out of this. And I'm just wondering, when is the whoa, I want to get out of this for the American people?
Well, it's easier to get a divorce than to remove a president from office, and so I think most people are
along for the ride.
Right. Most people who are wishing that he was not the president are waiting for the election in 2 years and hoping that their candidate, whoever that candidate might be, is the one who becomes the next president of the United States. Thank you, Daryl. I see Alan is back on the stage. I'll go to Doctor, followed by Alan. Doctor, your microphone is open. We don't hear you.
Dr. Nabil? You there? Hello?
Okay. Well,
Dr. Nabil?
Okay, that's not working. Alan, are you ready to rock and roll?
I'm always ready for rock and roll for you.
Thank you, brother.
Hope all is well, thanks. I was sitting quiet on the audience. Finally, Marshall, thanks to him, he saw me. I don't know what's wrong with it. Sometimes I just have to sit there anyway. But it's, what is crossing my mind most of the time. I don't have any way to, it's just a feeling. I think Iran has some way manipulate these news is coming out. This is what I need to, you're good at it, Gary. Try to find it. This just came out. This news just popped in. It says, let's see. Hold on. It's an organization you probably know because this is the first time I heard it, called Hayum in Israel. Nowadays says it's a evidence. The Mustafa Khamenei, the son of Khamenei, got killed. He says for some reason there was evidence. They give him the news ahead of time before his place got hit, and he's been okay. All those he lost the leg, he lost this is all wrong. He's healthy and but the thing is, it's obvious he is not the decision maker. There are some other groups under the cover, they making this decision. To me, it's when President Trump comes and said, no, we don't have the deal. I think those deals, the news that comes in, we're going to bomb the hell out of the attack. I think the Irans, the hackers, they're doing something and they came in, they're saying this thing. It's a possibility. I'm not saying it's 100%, but I don't.
Well, the president did say that Truth Social, that if Oman gets in the way of a deal that he's trying to get through on the Strait of Hormuz, we're going to bomb the shit out of. This is his words. Bomb the shit out of Oman. That's what he said.
Oh, this is it. Well, that's not. It's bypass what I said. But the thing is, Oman has a tremendous amount of interest in Iran. I said it many times. They've been on the ground, they had pipe to the gas, and they taken the natural gas of Iran for at least last 15, 20 years. And they don't pay a dime for it. And if something happened, I'm sure if there is a regime change or somebody comes in, those deals is all out. Along with all the other deal Iran regime they made with China, we made with Russia, and we made Qatar and Turkish. So now I found out the deal of Turkish being a mediator. Now if Iranian, they want to travel to Iran, they have to get off the plane in Istanbul, and you cannot book your flight, go straight from Canada to Tehran or US to Tehran or any place. They have to get off in Istanbul and they have to take them suitcases, and they pay the tremendous amount for each. There is a international, it's a 20 kilo, which is a 40 pound, but they changed it to 10 kilo, which is a 20 pound. And they collected a lot of money out of these Iranians. My cousin is one of them, and she is having an almost heart attack to get rid of some of the stuff they asked her to bring. And she said, there is no way I can go through and then pay the tremendous amount. These people are cashing out on all this stuff. And I don't blame him. Qatar goes out of his way, try to, stabilize the situation, because they don't want to lose that free gas we getting and selling it to the European anyway. Back to you, sir.
So, Oman may not be the best ally that we have in the region, is what you're suggesting, but still, they are considered an ally, and the president has, whether he means it or not, taken a True Social, and previously during a cabinet meeting, as Marshall points out, threatened now twice to bomb Oman. Doctor, followed by Mansif. You want to try it now? Doctor, are you there? And once again, your microphone is open, but we do not hear you. You have a problem, a technical problem. Mansif, followed by Sig.
Hey, thanks, Gary. So I'm not even surprised when I hear bombastic comments like this or statements, because we got used to them. He put just a search of Trump's most outrageous statements, and a bunch of stuff would come up. And I agree with Daryl that he does it for shock value. But I heard, I was listening to French news yesterday, and they talked about something to do with a Trump statement that was outrageous. Oh, yeah, it was exactly about a month. And they said, but no one takes these statements seriously because we've heard so many, and we know he does them, that's his style of diplomacy. And they called it's just a way to hide the failures that he has going for him right now that people are not talking about. So if you didn't make that statement, your room could have been today, Gary, about maybe why the war in Iran is taking this long. Well, we were promised that it was going to be a short excursion, or why our troops in the Middle East are running out of food and hygiene problems and all that. But he keeps making these statements, and those become the main event, the main thing that people are talking about. I mean, it goes back to we're gonna take over Greenland. I mean, Denmark thought it was shocking when they heard it. After a while, they just disregarded it as a hey, it's just talk. Making Canada the 51st state. That's a threat. You're gonna invade a nation, a neighboring nation. That's not even an ally. It's like a nation that you share, thousands of miles of borders with, and that I don't think there is a country in the world, as far as I know, that is close as Canada and the United States are. You can't distinguish between the Canadians and Americans, style of living, the mentality, the accent, the English language accent is fine, unless they say about, which they can, and then you're a but saying stuff like that usually, I mean, I don't know if he does it for attention. I don't really want to say that only someone with
Oops.
I don't.
Months have dropped out hard.
Yeah,
Months, are you there?
His microphone is open.
that come to your.
The months, if you got to go back like 20 seconds, man. You dropped out.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Certainly.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I said even the people in the Republican Party or Trump supporters, they will just give you the argument, oh, Trump is just Trump. We don't take his words literally. And we used to have a problem with that at the beginning of the first term and the beginning of this presidency. It's like, how that can't be real. That means you can't trust the words that are coming out of the president's mouth. And a lot of people say, well, it's just says things that you never know when he's joking or when he's being, sarcastic or whatever. A lot of the stuff that he said didn't end up happening. And a lot of these threats, these countries don't really take him seriously. Is that bad for the United States? Yes, I would like our president to have the power of his words taken seriously, that he's not just generous and frivolous about, what he says in the middle of the night, and then if he says something that people are gonna, we lost our credibility in the world. I'm going to end with this. About 10 days ago, I went to see a concert by Bryan Adams. I don't know, older people might remember him. He was a rocker from the 80s. He still tours. He's great. He's a Canadian rock singer. And he sang a song in the concert called the 51st State. Basically, the song went, we will never be the 51st state. And it had, great applause and all that from the people. But it pushed people that we felt always like they are our closest, not just ally, but like neighbors and all that, to feel like they had to say to their neighbor, like, don't even think about it. You went too far. But, I still say that the reason he's doing all this so that we don't talk about this stuff that is going on, that we could be talking about. Yesterday, I think it was the Reuters Ipsos poll that now is 33%.
You're starting to matrix a bit.
You're in the
We
matrix.
can hear a little room sync.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Monsef.
Yeah, 30% presidency, and that people should be talking about. Why are people so?
Yeah, you're underwater again, Monsef.
Try to use Wi-Fi, motherfucker.
We were just having a discussion at work about this, how people don't want to use the phones any longer to do radio interviews. And the quality is not as good, that's for sure. But the breakup doesn't occur like it does here. When the packets drop, this is a problem with digital. And the packets just dropped on you, Monsef. Sync followed by abnormal.
Thank you, Gary. What I think we're sometimes missing the trees of the forest. And if we're looking at what has occurred in this administration, it's been a huge amount of corruption. And this was started from the firing of all of the inspectors generals in different agencies.
Which is not today's topic.
I understand today's topic, but I think it is it's based on the markets, and there are a lot of people probably in this cabinet that are making a lot of money based on these truth, whatever you want to call them, truths that go out. They are manipulating the market. It is something that...
You think that this threat against Oman is another manipulation of the market?
Yes, I believe that. I know that to be true.
Well, how do you know it? It's one thing to believe it, but now you say you know it. How do you know it to be true?
Because everything that he has done has been, I think what Daryl already mentioned, it's like filling the coffers for people in his orbit. I believe that all of these, because the power of the presidency is something that a person like Donald Trump never should have received. It's unfortunate that people elected him. They thought that he was going to be like a game changer or change agent. No, he is literally just trying to like enrich himself and everyone in his orbit. So when he makes these statements, unfortunately, it's the power of the United States that goes along with him.
There is no question that he has amassed, and the folks in his orbit have amassed massive wealth.
They're making money off of these statements.
During his presidency. I don't know that we can, at this point, show a causation, but there may very well be.
There will be a government accountability report that will be investigated at the end of this presidency.
No, I mean in terms
that
of,
will show that.
I'm not saying.
Yeah,
but okay. So you're not gonna let me speak?
Sorry.
So I'm not saying that that you can't show causation on the wealth amassed. That's not what I was saying. I'm saying that specifically. I don't know if you can show a causation that the True Social posting about the threat to bomb Oman is going to, or in hindsight, has resulted in even more wealth in his orbit, as you put it. I don't know that we can say that specifically. We'll see.
I think there will be an accounting that will take place later, but I think all you would have to do is look at the Fidelity and Vanguard accounts of the people in his orbit and see if there were correlations between the time that he decides to make his messages and potential wealth gains for those people.
So I don't know whether we, as I said, I don't know whether we can say that that's the motivation here. But in my mind, it doesn't really matter what the motivation is.
It's also
Okay, you're going to interrupt me again. I'm gonna move on to another caller. I don't think the motivation is as important as what he is doing. I don't think it's proper for the United States to be threatening its allies, not publicly, maybe privately in private conversations, but clearly not publicly. I'm going to give Abby an opportunity to get her footing, and we'll go to El Normal and then back to Abby.
I didn't really have a lot to say, but I actually did want to respond to that comment because, I think it's off topic, but I think to make a definitive statement that the person knows for a fact, I think is disingenuous. I mean, we could then go back and look at everyone in public office and we could say that Hillary Clinton established great wealth from positioning certain foreign decisions as Secretary of State, and we can say that Pelosi positioned in order to gain. I mean, I think there's lots of allegations, there's lots of innuendos, but I don't think to say that things are definitive is proper. I wanted to respond to that. I put in the chat Rubio's reaction, and I don't know if you talked about that. With respect to Trump's comments, it feels like Rubio's doing some cleanup. But there's a mixed message because there are some, Rubio's comments are that Oman has been a good faith actor. And if you look at some of the history of why Trump is making his comments, he's feeling like Oman has been emboldening Iran and not working well through the negotiations and has been problematic for the last few months. So that, I'm finding a conflict between the two of them, and I don't know where the truth is between that, whether Oman has actually been more of a thorn in their side or if Rubio is correct and has worked with them. So I kind of put that question out there. I don't know, Gary, maybe if you have more insight into that. Been curious about it.
I find it fascinating. I was unaware of that, but I find it fascinating because we've all been wondering when it was going to happen, where Rubio would start exerting some of his independence and distance himself a little bit from the president as he potentially eyes a run for the presidency himself. That's, I think, from that perspective, what you just brought to the table, Abby, is fascinating.
Thank you. That's really all I had.
Yeah, thank you. So, there's a lot of reporting about wealth amassed by the president and people in his orbit. The problem I had with the previous caller was she sounds like Marjorie Taylor Greene when Marjorie Taylor Greene says she knows that there are discussions in the administration to potentially nuke Iran. She knows it. Well, she may be in a better position to knowing that than the previous caller is in a position to knowing the motivation behind the threat against Oman. Thank you, Abby. I'm normal. Sorry about that. You're up, followed by Amir.
Hello. No, Abby raised a really interesting bit of information. An interesting nuance. I would echo Secretary of State Rubio's appraisal of the Omanis. They are a lovely people, and they are very, very, very wealthy. They have amassed an inestimable oil fortune, and they don't spend their money very much. They are rather conservative with the money, and they are not materialistic. In short, the Omanis are really nice people. Now, I am always a little bit surprised when we take Trump's declarations literally, because it just doesn't make sense to do that. Trump must be understood as a salesman, as a pitchman. You could say, if you wish, as a carnival barker, or as a, well, I don't want to go all the way to call him a snake oil salesman, but he's the person that we've selected to project American strength. And that's what he's doing. When he says to Greenland, maybe we'll just take Greenland, which is, of course, on the face of it, an absurd statement. What he means is that we're going to need to have a greater role in the Arctic Circle because the ice caps have melted and Russia and China are up there, and we need to be up there too, probably to a greater extent than you, Denmark, have figured. That's an example. When we say that we are going to make Canada the 51st state, again, these are like punchlines to jokes. And I understand that people's sensibilities get scuffed in this process. But just remember, Donald Trump massively improved our trade deals with Mexico and Canada. And that can be the subject of another room. We can go into details on that. But what he's saying is that he thinks that we can get a better deal, and we're going to have a better deal with Canada. And Canada has not been meeting its potential as a U.S. ally, and that most of the...
you agree with the tactic? You say this tactic is successful. Do you agree with it?
I would never do this. No, I'm not wired that way. I mean, you need a special person to be president at all. No, I don't agree with it at all. But I see it's been quite effective. So there's that. I mean, he's the person, he's our hitman. We've elected him to do this dirty work.
Yeah.
Now,
brilliant. Yeah, sorry, I don't want to interfere. It's a brilliant answer.
You gotta wait your turn, buddy.
Sorry, Kerry. Okay, sorry.
So, in what we said to Oman was meant for Iran. The IRGC, I shouldn't say Iran. It's meant for the Islamic Revolutionary Genocide Corps. It's not meant for the Omanis. We're fine with the Omanis, and they will not be changing.
Well, then why is he threatening Oman?
He's letting the IRGC know that nothing is off the table. That he's letting the IRGC know that if they're threatening XYZ, we will threaten XYZ to the 1,000th power. In other words, he's flexing American military dominance, which is
but is there American military dominance in this conflict?
Say again?
Is there American military dominance in this conflict?
Overwhelming, yeah.
There is?
Yeah.
So the Strait of Hormuz? The Strait of Hormuz is an open
what would you
regime.
Like to know about the Strait of Hormuz is a little narrow passageway in a body of water. What would you like to know specifically about the Strait of Hormuz?
Well, no, I'm saying I don't need to know anything about the Strait of Hormuz. I know all about the Strait of Hormuz. I'm saying
you know
he's flexing. You made the comment that he is flexing military dominance.
That's right.
Where is it? Where with the Strait of Hormuz closed, despite claims to the contrary, but not every day. Sometimes he acknowledges it's closed. Sometimes he claims that it is open.
It's a pretty long question.
Excuse me?
I said it's a pretty long question.
Jerome, the rules.
Okay, so we already told you what the rules of the room are. So you're gone from the stage. So and when you do that, you make the question longer because you break somebody's train of thought. So if your intent was to make the question shorter, you just worked in the opposite direction. So where is the military prowess that's being flexed? The regime remains in power. Some semblance of the regime remains in power. The nuclear dust still is in the hands of the Iranians. The Strait of Hormuz, which was open, is now closed. One of the aircraft carriers is obviously problematic. We don't know whether it's as bad as has been reported, but it's bad enough to move an aircraft carrier group from the Pacific to the Middle East to relieve them, making us vulnerable in the Pacific. So something's going on over there. Where is the military prowess? There are the words coming out of the mouth of the president, but those words don't translate into military prowess. Do you really think that by him threatening to bomb Oman, that shows to the Revolutionary Guard that we better be careful because the United States has all this military prowess?
So the answer to your question can be found in the number of military targets that we have decimated. And that's an overwhelming number, as well as in the remarkable achievement of decapitating this regime 3 layers down, beginning with their godlike figure or deity-like figure, or divine figure, whatever they consider, Ayatollah Khomeini, and 3 levels down to the Islamic Revolutionary Genocide Corps. We now, for the first time since 1979, after thousands of terror attacks against the West, after thousands of dead people and no restrictions on these guys whatsoever, except, of course, for economic restrictions, which they managed to get around, for the first time, we are kiboshing them. And they know it, and they feel it, and there is no prospect of us stopping that. We can hit them at will. We've never done that before. We can fly.
Then why aren't we doing it? Why are we doing it?
Well, it's one of those, I think it's kind of brilliant because they said, we will take control of the Strait of Hormuz, they said. And we said, oh, really? Well, we'll blockade your blockade, which is both like kindergarten level, but also is exactly on the level of the enemy. So we're now strangling them economically without having to fire a single shot. Meanwhile, by the way, on the subject of the Strait of Hormuz, it's neither open nor closed.
Well, so it's not certainly operating to its normal capacity. When you have 7 or 6 or 8 transits a day, and there were more than 100, sometimes as many as 200 a day, you could call that open if you want.
It's reduced. It's reduced because of pirates.
Reduced?
Yes, it's reduced. We have, and it's difficult to get insurance. So they will sometimes attack ships and they will sometimes not. Those are acts of piracy.
Whenever they move through, the ships are attacked. Every day that they move through, ships are attacked. You know that.
Well, please, I don't say what you think I know, which is, by the way, that was also crazy for people to speculate about Trump's motivations and the working of his mind. So that's crazy talk. But I'm
talking about the facts on the ground or on the water.
I do not think all of the ships passing through there right now, whatever they are, I have to go look. I thought it was up to, I don't know, something like 65, but I don't know.
No, it's 6 or 7 a day.
Okay. They're not all being fired upon, obviously.
I didn't say that. I said every day that ship is attacked.
I'm sorry?
I said on a daily basis ships are attacked.
Oh, yeah. I don't know with what degree.
I didn't say every ship is being attacked. I said on a daily basis ships are attacked.
I'm not nickel and diming you by any means. It's the same thing with the Houthis in the Red Sea. They've decided they want to be pirates. So what do you do with pirates? You eliminate them. There isn't any other option. We're not going. They've proven, this IRGC, that they're not to be trusted. They don't make a fair deal. So there's no point.
Are they being eliminated by this military prowess to which you refer?
Are they being eliminated? They are being massively degraded. They are being.
But you just said that we have this great military prowess,
that's
and
correct.
we're scaring the Revolutionary Guard into recognizing that we have this military prowess.
Well, I didn't make
because we threaten Oman. That sends a message to the Revolutionary Guard, and they are pirates, and the only way to deal with the pirates is to eliminate the pirates.
Yes.
But we haven't eliminated the pirates.
Well, because we're going slowly, because we're also watching the oil markets, and we don't want the American people to bear too much of the suffering. At some point, I mean, I see that Iran.
But if you eliminate the Revolutionary Guard and you reopen the Strait of Hormuz, then the oil starts flowing and the markets respond.
Yeah.
So wouldn't that be the proper way of going? And by the way, we've run out of long range. We're running low on inventory of long range missiles because of this war.
Well, of course, we use munitions in a war. Why is that surprising? That's what they're for. They're not for saving. They're for using. This is what these weapons are for, to attack our enemies, which we should have done a long time ago. And now we will replenish them, obviously.
Okay, I'm going to move on because it's 56, but I will say that's an interesting perspective, and I've enjoyed our back and forth.
Me too.
Amir, you want to try it again, and we'll try to get to Steve.
Yep. Hi there, Gary. Very quickly, first of all, Iran has a lot of influence on in Oman, and this goes back decades. And why do I mention this? Because that leverage has been used by Iran to have a deal with Oman regarding the Strait of Hormuz. Now, we know that for decades, Iran has been threatening the closure of the strait. I mean, not only that, they've actually outlined how they're going to do it. And it's not going to be very difficult. I mean, as we all know, Houthis, for example, that's just been mentioned in Yemen, they can close the Bab el-Mandab quite easily. So, I mean, the mighty IRGC closing the Strait of Hormuz is a walk in the park. So there is no surprises there at all. However, what was a surprise, and this was a massive surprise to Iran, as again it's just been mentioned, was the naval blockade. Nobody actually imagined that there was going to be a naval blockade. Nobody had anticipated this. Now, it's been very effective. It's crippling the Iranian economy. It's creating social upheaval, and actually it's creating social havoc. The lack of petrol, for example, very basic things, the lack of food like, wheat and stuff like that, which needed to be imported. And most of all, the infighting within the Iranian government. So much so that the IRGC is actually thinking about escalating the war, is thinking about using this as a means of unifying different factions within the regime.
Okay, but to the question of the threat to Oman,
right?
Are you in agreement with the previous caller that when the president threatened Oman, he was sending a message to the Revolutionary Guard, not really to Oman?
I don't agree with that. I'll tell you why. Now, why is Trump threatening Oman? Well, as I say, it's because his strategy is being compromised. What is his strategy? It's a strategy of wait and see with the blockade. That is being compromised. So why has he done it publicly? Well, to be honest with you, Gary, I actually wouldn't be surprised, given the influence that Iran has over Oman, I wouldn't be surprised if Oman actually asked him to do so. That would clearly get Oman off the hook if they actually nullified the agreement between them and Iran. They say, look, this guy is going to bomb me to hell. I mean, that just imagine that. So no, I don't agree with the comment that was made with the previous speaker, with Norman. But I think I think this would make more sense. Now, what this proves is that obviously Trump thinks that his current wait-and-see policy with the blockade is actually working. And Oman is compromising this plan. So that could explain this. Now, let's go back to the point I made regarding escalating the war. What would happen? What would the U.S. response be if a major military vessel, for example, was hit? I mean, I'd like Anson to be here and to answer this. Maybe you can actually put a room on this. And if there was casualties, what would be the response be? What if military bases came under attack? Sustained attack with a swarm of the drones. I mean, no one knows what the outcome of that would be. So just putting that aside for the moment, will the naval blockade bring Tehran to the negotiating table, which is what Trump is asking. I think, yes, it may do that, but will it get the result that Trump wants? The nuclear does? I don't think so.
And with that, I have to cut you off because it's the top of the hour and I gotta go. But it is true that the naval blockade has been highly effective, I agree with both of you, at crushing Tehran's maritime trade, even though there have been ships that have been able to elude the blockade as well. Folks, we're here Monday through Friday at 5 o'clock New York Times. But it is true that the naval blockade has been highly effective, and I agree with both of you, at crushing Tehran's maritime even though there have been ships that have been able
your hands and you take captives. If you notice among the captives a beautiful woman who you are attracted to, you may take her as your wife, bring her into your home and have her shave all of her head, trim all her nails, put aside the clothes she was wearing when she was captured. After she has lived in your house and mourned her father and her mother for a full month, you may then go to her and be her husband, and she shall be your wife. If you are not pleased with her, let her go. You must not sell her or treat her badly, since you have dishonored her. But you can still make her your wife.
If they actually nullify the agreement between them and Iran, they say, look, this guy is going to bomb me to hell.
Restrain the expression, shoot thy glance to rapture's darkling root. Discarding name, form, sight, and stress, even of this high consciousness. Pierce to the heart I leave thee here. Thou art the master I revere, thy radiance that rolls afar, O brother of the silver star. Ready?
Give me the sign of the open eye and the token erect of thorny thigh and the word of madness and mystery. O Pan, we O Pan, pam, 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 pam. I am a man. Do as thou wilt, as a great God can. O Pan, 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 Pan. I am awake in the grip of the snake. The eagle slashes with beak and claw. The gods withdraw. Come, Pan, I am born to death on the horn of the unicorn. I am Pan, 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 Pan. I am thy mate, I am thy man. Go to thy